Hello, happy Monday, happy week of Thanksgiving. Jen and I are glad to be with you today. And we thought we should stop because I think we've all been experiencing some sober news as we've been preparing for our Thanksgiving holidays. That's also impacting our business, and that's the rise of the virus, the COVID-19 virus, and how it's now starting to impact not only schools, our family plans, but also as we're planning for work. And so we thought we'd talk about, how to pay attention to that, and then maybe a little bit, we'll get into some capacity today. So Jen, I know you had some thoughts on this. Do you want to share?
Yeah, I mean, I want to start by saying, I know that we're all super tired of the pandemic and over it, wanting to be over it, wanting to get back to normal, wanting to get back to the office, get back to our clients, all of that. So I get it. I feel the same way. But I want to caution us, and especially on the talent side, this is our HR huddle. So these are our talent peeps. I want to caution us from appearing tone deaf, insensitive, or uncool during this kind of heightened period where we're seeing spikes across the country, and hospital beds are filling, and there's a nervousness. Heck, toilet paper is short again. That's somehow disappeared off the shelves. So we're back, sort of a little bit back to the future or something. We're back to April, or it's a little scary. And I don't want us as employers, to sound like we don't get that increased tension. As we're planning for spring busy season, we really need to think about, while there may be a vaccine around that corner and it might pop up and save the day in January or February, I think we need to make all our plans around remote and blended. That's number one. Number two, and this is going to be a little awkward, but last time I looked, and this is like Friday or Saturday, 253,000 people had died from COVID-19, according to the CDC. That's 253,000 families affected by a death. And you could say, yes, many of them were ill or old, or they were going to die anyway. Deaths are up, though. Overall death is up at the CDC. So they track death overall year over year, and then we have this extra 253,000 deaths. So I just want to point out that sometimes we could be a little bit like, it's just a cold. I don't get what people are so bummed about, or I don't know why we have to talk about it. It's such a downer, and there could be this impatience or something with it. As employers, we cannot afford to do that because we don't know who in our midst, at the clients, who among our team members or our contractors or our referral sources, we don't know which of them is one of the 253,000 families that lost someone to this thing this year. And it's serious. So I just wanted to say that because I'm starting to notice a little bit of what I'm going to call crassness, being crass, like not having any couth by saying stuff like that. I'm not saying you need to be an alarmist, but we can't just completely blow off the suffering. And that's not even taking into account people who are ill or in the hospital right now or whatever. That's the ones that have already passed. So anyway, just let's try to make sure that we've got the right tone at the top, an empathetic, compassionate, loving tone that wants to be affirmative and positive and hopeful and can do, and yet is going to be safe and safety and healthy employees as our number one priority. And we're going to continue to carry that through as we have. We're not going to flag on that. The health and safety of our people, crucial. So,
yeah. And I want to add to that. I think that part of that commitment, and I know we've gotten a little lax, it's like, all right, everybody, wash your hands when you come in the door. If my husband's working, we're washing clothes because he's been in food service this entire time. And it's like, I know we got maybe a little lax this summer, and we're enjoying being out, but I think we're getting a little lax in our businesses too, in our offices. And what are we doing to make sure that they're safe and healthy? Make sure we're reinforcing those practices. And I agree. I think we're sick of it. We're sick of hearing wash your hands. We're sick of hearing wear your mask. But it is important for us to do so. But also, as we start to plan for January coming and busy season, make sure our people have the tools that everyone has laptops, including admin, that we have we've been looking at our paperless. Hopefully we saw what the gaps were in April when we all, went home, March and April, and we've been working on our paperless. What else can we do? E-signatures, all of those things. That will help our capacity, by the way, which I know we're worried about. We knew the capacity crunch was going to come back. We were uncertain in the spring, started to see it ramp up again in the summer, and I think we're going to be hit with it again. So all people should have the tools necessary, but it also sends the message that you're important and your health and safety is important, that you can work from home if you need to, or that we have the flexibility to figure out when we need to work. So I think that's part of it. And I know I'm guilty, it's like, I'm sick of this too. And, my family's like, I'm sick of this, but we have to be careful and not take our foot off that pedal, I think.
I agree. Rigor and discipline matters. And your organization needs to take a higher level of, of concern for the health and safety of your people and your clients than you ever have, maybe. Right now, I think that's what's called for. So that's what we're calling you to. And your people will remember it. They're
Right.
going to remember that you put this first. They're going to appreciate it. And we're hearing, Tamara and I and Renee and others on our team, we teach and facilitate. We're reaching thousands of people over the course of the last 6 months. And people reach out to us and chat on these webinars or, association meetings or whatever it is that we're doing. And they reach out and they say, my firm never mandated masks. And I'm telling you, I'm not changing my job right now, but I plan to. I'm not going to stay here. That was uncool of them, or they never shut down. So just think about that. And, I know it's hard. I know that it is hard. And yet we also know remote work works. And we know that digital transformation is required, whether we had a pandemic or not. The rise of the next gen client, the rise of the next gen talent require those things. So go ahead and get in the game on them if you haven't already. And if you have, congratulations, keep going, keep leaping forward. So anyway, I think, Tamara, let's talk about capacity, because I think that's something else on people's minds too.
I think that leads right into capacity, because that digital capability that we have provides a whole bunch of flexibility of new ways to work. And also it provides flexibility for filling in some of the gaps where we might have capacity crunches and talent, and looking for some people that might be willing to work temporary, or some fractional employees, or some offshoring. I know, all of those options are just starting to pick back up again, and we should be exploring them if we haven't already, and have some kind of blend of those available so that we can handle some of the capacity challenges that we're going to have. If we're not already having that, if you're not already experiencing them, we think you're going to, but we think many firms already are.
Well, so a couple of thoughts. One is traditionally, no pandemic, traditionally, we would say that May and November into early December, those are what we would call quitting season. I know we hate that. We don't like even thinking about it, but our people tend to leave us in clumps during those time periods. They complete a busy season period and they kind of come up for air and think, is this what I'm going to keep doing or not? And then they leave us. And I know that I've talked to a number of wonderful firms who've had some clumps of people, some groups of people leave recently. So we're having some loss. Not everybody, but some of you on this call, I know you've had some loss. Second, we might have more work this spring. Certainly, we could have some, I don't know, maybe emergency tax measures taken. I don't know how well Congress will do, but we're probably going to have a new president in January. It looks like it. And we'll have to see what Congress and that president decide to do. Now, maybe they can't affect anything that fast to impact our spring and summer, but we'll have to be watching for that. Second, PPP forgiveness. Now, right now, I think it's 50,000 and down. You basically have the simple form, and it's pretty much almost all, I believe, I'm not an expert, by the way, but almost the way I hear it, easily forgiven and easily documented and forgiven. Over that, though, people are probably going to need help from their practitioner. you guys, your firms. And so we think that, and by the way, a very few, small percentage of PPP forgiveness applications have been filed so far, which means there's this kind of tsunami of PPP forgiveness applications lurking out there. When will they hit? I don't know. That depends a little bit about what Congress does and relief and what happens in this new political environment as this transition occurs. But if that tsunami hits us in spring, we better be ready. And who does it hit? I think mostly our tax folks. Client accounting, I know, got a lot involved as well. But so anyway, those are just some things to be thinking about that could be coming toward us as we get to spring. And also our own growth, the organic growth we might have experienced next year anyway. So what are you doing to make sure that your staffing and capacity will work? And Tamara, you just reeled off a bunch of things. Maybe you should pick one or two that you like. Well, maybe, what do you think about you starting with talking about how do we even figure out what our current capacity is?
Well, let's do that, because as you were talking, I was just thinking, I wonder how many firms have a list of all their clients that have PPP and which applications we're going to have to go now file forgiveness for.
And the size of the PPP,
and
right?
the size of the PPP.
Yeah.
And then we've been advising like 1040 groups. Like we should have a group of people doing 1040s. Maybe we should be having a group of people that are doing PPPs. And we could scale it by size.
Of course.
But not everybody in the tax group or the client accounting group or the firm should probably be filling those things out. So we need to identify that. And that can help us say, how much capacity are we going to need for that? And
now
then
we call that work segregation. I just want to insert that in there. Yeah. The idea of segregating like work with a group of people to get them really efficient at it. Right. And that way you're not having, especially when it's simple work. I don't know if PPP applications will all be simple. 1040s certainly are.
Right.
Then you can keep higher level resources from working on that segregated simple work. Or maybe it's segregated hard work and you have to have your best and brightest, your highest level resources working on that.
Right, exactly. And if we can scale it, we can figure out how much of it is going to be simpler. Do we all need to become experts on it? Is it gonna last? No, probably not. This is like a one-time thing. And so we just need to say, what resources should we be putting on? Who's our experts? We know some firms that did that in March. They became experts and they educated and they did webinars and they did the research and they educated people and it went through that group. And it was brilliant when we were watching those firms do it. And I don't know if we're doing it on the back end here on the forgiveness side. So that's one thing, is look at how we can segregate work and then figure out, our clients. What do we have today? What are the services? What new clients are we adding? And then how are we, budgeting? What's the FTEs required for that? So we can then plan capacity and then compare that to the team that we have. And maybe we lost some, maybe people got promoted. It's not the same levels. Like we have to do some, matching there and math a little bit to figure out, what do we have for capacity? And then where do we need to fill in? And what kind of skills do we need to fill in? And often I just hear, I just need that middle, reviewers, or I just need like really experienced seniors or supervisors, managers to review. Well, how many and how much? And when I ask that question, we can't answer that question. So, it's hard to say what kind of, I have a feeling I'm going to be, engulfed in this, but how much? And we can quantify that.
Well, and Tamara, so I'm going to bring up two words that I absolutely don't like, but they're important here, and they're old-fashioned. So old-fashioned capacity planning is something that we have been teaching. And it's awkward because we don't like anything that's not progressive. So I'm sure there's a more brilliant way to do this. But the simplest form of capacity planning is to say, how many chargeable hours do we have in tax from January to May did we have in 2020? Now that would be weird. I'd go to 19, by the way, because 20 is weird because of the push to July, right? So, and maybe you could just look for those 7 months and say that's actually probably 5 months of tax work. But whatever it is, how many hours in this period do we have? So I'd go to 19 maybe, and then increase it by the percentage growth we had as a firm over the course of the last year and what we anticipate in 21. And that's the total number of charge hours at a minimum that we need Now, you might say realized hours, the hours we build, but I would look at total hours because we have to, that's the churn of and inefficiency and training and all the stuff that's in there. So I would look at those total hours, and then I'd say, how many FTE, how many hours do we count on from these people? How many FTE does that turn out to be? And then I would evaluate how many FTE do we have, and you're going to find your gap. You're going to find the gap there. Now, Tamara talked about fractional people, which is essentially contract people. They call them fractional because they're not working a full-time job, and they're usually contracted through a third party that does fractional outsourcing. And so you're engaging with one entity, and they're bringing you multiple people that are partially assigned to your firm for the busy season in different roles. Then they're usually higher level people. Versus outsourcing, which is where I take, I send a bunch of my work out to a third party, and they do the work and they supervise the people. And that's a different thing than having fractional people.
And I think that's often preparation work, and maybe some more lower level or grouped work.
Yeah, I would agree with you. And so, but how many real hours, and I know we don't like hours, but right now that's what many people are speaking in, or how many FTE, commitments do we need for the first 5 months of 2021, and how many do we have, and then what is the shortage? And you might, again, look at that by level, because that's another mistake firms will make. They'll be like, well, we have the need for 18 FTE and tax, and we have 21. We're golden. Well, wait a minute. We had quitting season last year in the summer, and we lost a bunch of heavy seniors and a couple managers and maybe a senior manager throughout the year. And we had a nice crop of first-year hires that just started in December. So that's how you're getting to your 21 number. But in terms of experienced FTE, we're horribly short, which means we're, a lot of pressure on the rest of the experienced people. And because they're going to be teaching the inexperienced people and managing the review load. And so looking at it by level is critical. Looking at how many manager hours we had, how many senior hours, how many senior manager hours, did we have, and do we project? And then how many of those people do we have? And that would show you whether you need to be thinking about outsourcing, which is domestically sending your work to an outsourcer, or offshoring, which may be a little late in the game to do here in November for a January start. That could be something we think about for transformation in 2021 later, or this fractional idea. And Tamara and I, we're not going to try to endorse anybody in this program, but we welcome any emails to us at Jen at Convergence Coaching, or Tamara, Tamera, at Convergence Coaching, and we'll happily give you some names of people to talk to about these various kind of non-traditional staffing. Of course, we'd love you to make some hires as well.
Well, and also I'm going to add one more factor to your math equation there, Jen.
Please.
I think as I'm looking at what their capacity is, so let's say I worked, 2,400 hours in 2019.
Total hours.
I think is weird. I don't know that we can count on 2,400 hours from some of our team members this busy season.
Good point. Super
coming back home when we're, you and I are both taking care of aging parents. We have got
school.
Oh, that's right? What I mean. All my kids are coming home. I mean, our whole state is back home. Pretty much. I think some of the rural areas they're still going, but pretty much Twin Cities. And my son's been home, and so that's coming back again. And so I just think we need to get real and have conversations with our people. This is what you worked in 2019. This is what you worked in 2020. And I know that's a weird number, but what realistically can we plan on? And what is your schedule looking like? What do they got going on? Because I don't think that we can just say they did 2,400 hours.
No, agreed.
I know that's sad. I know that's going to impact our, profitability and the number of hours and utilization. I get all that, but I think we also have to be real. And so I would look at all hours, not just billable hours. And I would look at and have conversations with people about what do you think you can commit to? And what does that look like?
I think that's so smart, Tamara. And I agree with you that it's going to be one size fits one. So we really need to have people do what we would call declare your hours. So I'm going to declare what I think my chargeable hours could be. You can, maybe if in the past I was able to eke out 6 chargeable hours a day at a senior manager level, or 5 maybe, or whatever that number was, but my kids are going to Zoom school and I've got a kindergartner who can't read and I'm going to have to sit next to her while we do kindergarten. So I can't really start my shift with with
Until 12.
the tax work until like 1 o'clock when I convince my spouse to take over. So, yeah, that's going to have an impact and maybe I'm 3/4 time. Now, most firms are trying to avoid that conversation, hoping that'll go away. I would not avoid it. I'd be honest. What you'll have to then deal with is, are we going to take them to 3/4 pay? I know some firms are like trying to figure that out. If it were me, I would try really hard not to do that for a variety of reasons.
Well, if they're working over full time, right? I mean, if they're clearly working over full time, it's not going under full time. But yes, for a variety of reasons.
But even if they are going under, I'd be so careful about who I ding for this creepy set of circumstances we've all been given, because the last thing we need is them to be stressed about their kids or their parents, stressed about their work, and now stressed about their money. That has the potential for them to get out there in the marketplace and say, I got to find a different job.
Right.
And so anyway, I just want to put that out there. I know that I'm not saying we would carry that forever, but I want us to be cautious about
this season
making those moves, because this is a tough time to be putting more pressure on our people.
Right.
And I know we're all seeing, the fraying of edges of our people. Right. And we're all feeling it ourselves. And so I just, I know as an employer, you could be saying, hey, wait a minute. I can't carry this forever. We can't keep taking the hit. I get it. And I'm not, every one of you listening has a different set of circumstances. So I'm not trying to give you a blanket prescription. But I also know that Tamara and I have been looking at a lot of firms, how their year's turning out for 2020. And, many firms are up, and they're up considerably, and they're up because of PPP advisory work. They're also, from a profit perspective, making more because they didn't have travel and expense. They didn't have the big retreat costs, the big event costs, the big food costs for busy season feeding. They just, and if they're self-funded on health insurance, they might have had some savings there because people weren't getting procedures and things. So, I worry that firms that have a lot of profit right now, I put out in social media over the weekend, please, partners, don't take all that and put it in your back pocket or a swimming pool in your backyard. Let's reinvest it in digital transformation, reinvest it in profit sharing to the 401k. Let's, yes, you can take some of it because you also have had some hardship here, but be careful about that. So not all firms are down, and not all firms are squeezy where they need to squeeze their people. Somebody who normally put in, 1,100 chargeable hours is going to do 1,000. Am I really going to ding them for the 100? I just think we need to think about that real carefully before we do it, especially when they live in the upper right-hand quadrants of our 9 box.
Right.
And very, very important to us.
Right. Yeah. There were some of our strongest people and most potential people. We want to be careful. I know we're at time, but I have to say one more thing about capacity. Yeah, so another place to look is looking at what can you pull out of people's roles that we can create a coordinator job, or a client coordinator position, or almost like project manager that can do communications with the client and coordinate things internally and update things. And like there's a whole bunch of stuff we could take out so that your reviewers can review, so that your partners can meet with clients, so that we're working at highest and best use. And we've seen some firms have success with that, but more needs to be done. And we re-examine people's roles and start to say, again, how do I group? That whole idea of grouping. What can I group and pull out of what some of our CPAs are doing, or our consultants are doing in the projects, and provide that support with another role that doesn't require those credentials. And you're probably can more easily find those people And we could find more, maybe, temporary part-time roles for that can come and coordinate stuff. And they don't have to be in the office to do that, by the way. If we are all using our, online systems and in the cloud, they can do that from anywhere. And so that's another place to look and get creative and start to pull that out. And we've seen that has worked splendidly. And by the way, those people keep track of what everybody else is supposed to be thinking about. They're doing the thinking about it. So it relieves some brain power too. Just that. It's like, what am I supposed to be doing and what's happening with this client? And they know. And so it's brilliant when, firms have put that together. So
and we see firms trying to avoid, adding overhead or G&A. We don't want to add administrative resources, but why wouldn't you add people that can be client facing and make a big difference in the way you're managing engagements and following up with clients on the things that they're missing and haven't given you yet because you're not able to finish the work, it's stalled and nobody's calling on that stuff and you're asking CPAs to do it and they're buried. I mean, some of that just doesn't make sense to us. And we know how awesome administrative coordinators and support personnel can be because we have an incredible team. And you have to invest, but it ends up paying off big time, and it's highest and best use, as Tamara said. So great one, great ad.
Yeah, and they're also part of the team, though. They're part of the client engagement team. It should be billable. Sure. So it's not even an admin resource, and don't call them an admin. We call them a client coordinator or project manager. So we bill them. All right.
Or a support representative. I mean, there's many names you can give them for sure. I'm on the same page. I just meant a lot of times people look at those client service, coordinator roles, and they think, we're not adding, non-CPAs to the mix. We need professionals. Well, they're professional. They're just professional at administrating and coordinating and promoting and communicating and doing all those things that maybe we're not that awesome at, and we shouldn't be spending technical resource on. They have their own technical skills, but not CPA technical skills. So, Tamara, one other thought is, or this is really Emily. Emily, add the capacity plan podcast, if you would, to this thread when you get it posted, if you would, for us, a link to that podcast. Please take a listen to that because we go into some more depth. It's a little longer, but we go into each of these non-traditional staffing ideas in some more depth. So welcome you looking at that if you get a chance. Thanks, Tamara, for this great subject because we could have done a week on it.
I was going to say, we could have, and it's fun that podcast we did a year ago. And we're right back where we are trying to plan for it. So we hope you have a safe and healthy Thanksgiving. Enjoy your families. Find things that we're grateful for. We keep looking for things we're grateful for, and we're grateful for you. Have a great week. So
yes,
thanks very much.
Happy Thanksgiving.